Hello and welcome to Kickstart Business Today and India Today television's coverage of the 54th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum at Davos. I'm joined by the person who's running the show over here. Borge Brende joins us at the India Today Group studios. Thank you very much and welcome once again.
Thank you for inviting me.
The theme this year at the World Economic Forum, Borge, seems to be about rebuilding trust in a fractured world. Do you want to start by explaining to everyone watching at this moment, how does this annual meeting of the World Economic Forum hope to live up to its mission of rebuilding trust?
So there is a clear trust deficit globally. There is also a huge geopolitical competition. But even in a fragmented world, we need to collaborate because some of the most pressing challenges are global and they are transboundary. Looking at, for example, then future pandemics, climate change, cyber attacks. We also know, for example, from the war in Gaza now, that we need to collaborate so this doesn't escalate out of control.
There is a big meeting of national security advisors taking place at the moment at Davos. Do you want to give us some insights about what you hope to achieve? Because it's very rare for so many NSAs to come together in the same hall.
It's true, and we appreciate that as a curtain raiser to our meeting. It's, of course, a very, very serious topic. It's at the backdrop is the war in Ukraine, but also all the other complications. What we hope, though, is that there can be a formula for peace moving forward, because every war has to end, also the Ukrainian war.
So how do you see that happen? Let's take, for example, the Israel-Hamas war at the moment and the kind of conversations you expect will happen at the World Economic Forum around this, because the big concern there is the prospect of escalation.
Yes, and we were initially very concerned that this would spread also to Lebanon with the war between then Israel and Hezbollah. We saw some spreading to Iraq, and now, of course, we are seeing that certain countries are attacking the Houthis after they have tried to close the Red Sea for traffic and shipping for the last weeks. And they were warned by the Americans. And so far, I hope and believe that this will not escalate to the whole region. I think this will now be in Gaza. I think the Houthi thing is a separate one. And also, we have to factor in that there is a rapprochement between the Saudis and the Iranian, brokered by the Chinese. There's also a rapprochement between the Emiratis and the Iranians.
How do you see the impact on global shipping lines? You're speaking to a whole host of shipping magnates, industry globally. How are these two wars that are playing themselves out at this moment impacting global corporate outlooks in your view?
So we know that the trade growth is much lower today than it used to be. Last year it was 0.8% compared to 3-4% in the past. We do expect trade to pick up a bit this year, maybe growing as much as also the overall growth that we expect around 2.8, 2.9. But it doesn't take much to also have negative impact on this. If we close the Red Sea, de facto the Suez Canal for weeks, it also has a very negative impact on the global supply chain. So a lot is at stake. And also we know that this has impact on the oil price. And for big oil importing countries, like, for example, India, just $10, $20 increase in the oil price has very negative effects on the economy. So I do hope that this now will not escalate further, and that the shipping can reconvene as usual in the Red Sea just in a few days' time.
In the last two editions of the World Economic Forum, the Russia-Ukraine war was at the center of a lot of conversation. It seems now, with America going into election mode and because of the Israel-Hamas conflict, a lot of attention is moving away. The Ukrainians becoming increasingly anxious, the president very frustrated. WEF has usually leaned in strongly on the side of the Ukrainian and wanted that this war ends. How do you see Russia-Ukraine play out? There are concerns that with the world's attention now divided and shifting away from this war, maybe Russia will soon start having the upper hand.
So the reality is that after Putin tried to invade the full Ukraine and started the war, his aim was to take Ukraine in a week. That did not happen. He still has control of 20% of their territory. Russia has probably lost 300,000 soldiers. They probably lost 60 to 70% of all their tanks. It has led to substantial increase in defense spendings in Europe. It has led to Finland joining NATO and probably Sweden pretty soon. And the Russian economy is not in a good shape. So I think that Russia has not come out well from this. But at the same time, the civilians in Ukraine are the big losers. They're being attacked every day. So I think, of course, every war has to end. But when the Ukrainians were able to then keep Russia out of most of Ukraine without any military support from the West, and now they have the sixth largest army in the world, military-wise too, after all those contributions, it is not possible for Russia to take Ukraine. But what you can see is there may be a continued bombing, shelling, and all this. So hopefully we will, in the coming year, see a solution on this based on the UN Charter and territorial integrity.
Last time when we met in New Delhi during the G20, B20 event, we had you at the Business Today India at 100 summit, and one of the things that you said then went viral across. There was a lot of conversation about it where you spoke of G3, China, the United States and India pushing global growth, you said, in the last decade. Some people later reacted strongly saying this is Borge just getting carried away. Okay, so the India story is shaping up well, but not quite as well as you suggested. How are you sitting at your perch at Davos looking at what's playing out in India at the moment?
So I'm still very optimistic on behalf of the Indian economy. We do expect the Indian economy to grow 8% this year. We think in the coming decade we can be speaking about a $10 trillion US dollar economy, at least in the coming 2 decades. So I also spoke about the snowball effect, and it's easier to understand when here you start to roll a small snowball on the top of one of these hills, and it starts to move down. It increases the speed, and it gets bigger and bigger. This is still what I do expect also moving forward in India. It's a economic success story, and I still believe in G3 and the fact that India in the future will be a player, maybe different, but on the same level as the US, China, and India. Maybe we should also add the European Union into this mix because it is 20% of the global economy and we are in Europe. So we should not write off Europe. So either we're speaking about the G3 or a G4.
Where does India figure in the conversations at Davos this year? I see on the promenade, the Indian presence keeps getting bigger, if that's even possible. It almost seems like an Indian takeover in some parts of the World Economic Forum Davos promenade.
So I think it's reflecting the reality. We have a lot of Indian companies here. India is growing very fast. There's a lot of interest in India. There is like a country strategy meeting on India where the 3 ministers that are here will conduct, and the governor of the central bank is here too. And I was told by my team that it was oversubscribed after half an hour. So there's like a long waiting list. I think we can only fit 100 CEOs into the room, and now they're waiting, they're upset, they can't get in. So I said maybe we'll have to look for a bigger room. I think this is reflecting also the interest in India. And of course, we would have loved to have Prime Minister Modi. It's an election year, so we are shooting for 2025. to have the Indian Prime Minister.
It seems you're already counting on a Modi re-election.
You said I was saying the Indian Prime Minister in Davos in 2025. So it's slippery here, the ice. But Norwegians are used to handling slippery ice. But we also are very pleased that we do have 3 cabinet ministers here in an election year. That's good, and the interest in India is just incredible.
Let's spend a moment talking about your global risk report. There, the misuse of artificial intelligence potentially in elections is cited as a very high risk just at this moment. How do you see that being dealt with in the conversations at WEF, given that a lot of these tools are available now and you don't quite know how to prevent the misuse of these AI tools?
So there's a lot of positive elements with AI, and I don't think we should underestimate how big it is. It is at least like the internet. Maybe it's as consequential as electricity. It will increase productivity maybe with 30% in this decade. That is a lot of prosperity. It will create new jobs. It will kill some old jobs. It's going to change our world. But you're right. Without traffic rules, you could see that you can build quantum computers. There's supercomputers that can break through all the security measures today. The billion walls made there. And you can use AI in then creating those new algorithms that can then be attacking the billion walls. You can have deep fakes. You can also see that it's used for autonomous weapons, killer robots, and all this. And for that, we need traffic rules. Just imagine New Delhi without traffic rules. It's already chaotic, but you do need some rules. And there I do hope, even in the fractured world, that the big nations can agree on some basic traffic rules so it works in the interest of humankind.
Do you see that happen? Or do you think that given everybody's at different levels of adoption of these AI technologies, coming together, given how fast technology is adopting, is really very difficult to actually achieve?
I think that it is hard to be at the forefront with the regulations. But I think there needs to be a consensus among the big economies that we really need to make sure that this knowledge is not used to build killer robots or autonomous weapons or drones that operate without any human kind of interference. Who wants that? That's exactly what we wanted to avoid after the Second World War, when we agreed on non-proliferation when it comes to nuclear weapons. We know that that should not end up in the wrong hands. We have, until quite lately, been quite successful in that. And this is also the negative side of AI. But I think sometimes we focus too much on that. I think we can handle it. We also have to look at all the big opportunities. And for example, for India, one of the reasons why India is growing so fast now is that India is fast mover in the digital economy. And the digital economy is growing twice as fast as the rest of the economy. The same with services. So for India, that has now been at the forefront here, digital economy, but also services export. This is like a very sweet spot for India that it has to use. But of course, the reforms also have to continue in India. The reforms are related to education. The reforms are related to also funding the different states, but also continuing to address unnecessary red tape and all this. But I feel there is an understanding of this also in New Delhi.
Lastly, let's speak about your global economic growth outlook. What is the WEF's understanding of economic growth globally and also from an Indian prism?
So we do expect 2.9% economic growth this year. Last year we had around 3%, so it's a little bit less. What we do think, though, is that the global trade growth will revive. It was only 0.8% last year. This year we expect trade to grow around 3% too. It's not, again, the kind of engine behind growth, but it is better. For 2025, we're a bit more optimistic. I think we then can go above 3% again. And we should also acknowledge that a lot of economists expected a recession in the US. It's the largest economy in the world, 25% of the GDP. There's no recession. It's probably a soft landing. We're seeing inflation abating a bit. Interest rates will then go down. And for India, I think if trade grows again, and India gets a little bit more help also from the global economy in 2025, I think, as I said, that India will be in medium term to long term, a 10 trillion US dollar economy, provided that the reforms do continue.
What's your outlook for when that might happen? $10 trillion?
So, as I said, medium term to long term. But I think if India really gets it right, that can happen also in the foreseeable future. I think the economy is around 3 trillion US dollars today. To triple that, it may take a decade.
Okay, lastly, you spoke of the US. There's a big election in the United States.
Oh, is it?
The prospect of Donald Trump being re-elected hangs over all the conversations here at the World Economic Forum, and everybody very concerned about what a second potential Trump presidency could look like.
You know, there are many elections this coming year. There's an election in India.
Yes.
You know, there's an election in Russia too.
Yeah, some kind of election, yes.
And there is an election coming up in the US. So we are following all these elections with great interest, to put it that way. You know, we are a neutral, impartial organization, but all these elections will have big impact on the world. There's also European parliament elections coming up. And the UK elections probably also in the fall.
Year of elections, more than half the world's population goes to the polls. 70 plus elections. That should be very exciting.
It helps when India does go to elections with 1.4 billion, you know.
Keeps us all really excited. Should be a fascinating year. Thank you so much, Borge, for joining us here at the India Today studios at the World Economic Forum. And I hope you have a great WEF. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for your time.